What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart. We'll talk about the altcoin market. We'll talk about the big news that we've got going on this week heading into the weekend to potentially provide volatility to the markets. By the time I release this video, Jerome Powell will have already spoken at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which seems to be what people have been waiting on all week. This morning, we've already seen volatility in Bitcoin. It's been hovering here for days around 21,500, give or take. This morning, we started with a little bit of a plunge heading all the way down to 21,100. What do you know? Whoop, right back up 21,800 as I'm recording it this second. But zooming out a little bit, where are we? We're where we've been all week. So this video may be kind of interesting because maybe we'll catch some of the volatility as it actually plays out here, as this meeting will happen while I'm recording. Otherwise, we'll review the things that I've been looking at over here on the price charts, what I'm kind of paying attention to as we head into the weekend, and structures I'm paying attention to, and whether or not prices can break out and head to the upside, or if we're in longer accumulation form. And then we'll try to tie that back in with the stock market, which we could see has been catching a little bit of a bounce. After backtesting its broken channel, the bears were celebrating a little bit early. We'll see if this thing has any juice left in it. Before we get started, the sponsor of this video is Link2, Private Investing Made Simple, where you can invest in private equity in companies before their IPO. They made a pretty cool announcement over here on Twitter a couple of days ago saying that Link2 pricing has been decreased on the following companies: Ripple, Uphold, Dapper Labs, Whoop, Zipline, Eat Just, Carbon, and Automation Anywhere. So there is now a dip over here in the private equity market, and they've reflected that in the pricing here on these assets over here on their website. In addition, throughout this weekend, they've reduced the minimums as well. So it's gone from 10,000 down to 5,000. So if you've been thinking about dipping your toe in the water here, they've got decreased pricing and reduced minimums over here on their platform. You could check them out by visiting the link in the description of this video to sign up and get yourself accredited. They'll give you the research tools you need to start learning about private equity. Now, before we dip into Bitcoin, before we dip into the cryptocurrency market, the big thing today the whole market's been waiting for is what's going to happen here at this speech with Jerome Powell at Jackson Hole. It's almost as if Bitcoin has done the exact same thing, because we can look through here. There's not many times where we sit here ranged like this for a full 7-day period in such a tight range. It definitely has the feelings of that this morning, and potentially in this video, it would be kind of silly if we get to the end of the video and it hasn't happened, that a move from one way or the other will happen. And then at the same time, what we always see during these Fed meetings too, or these Fed announcements, is that sometimes the first move isn't the real move. So I'm going to keep recording regardless. And the meeting is going to start in 3 minutes, and we'll see how things go. But he's expected to talk about, the forward looking for inflation, the Fed's plan. And if we look back to what happened last year when they had this meeting, he was still talking about inflation being transitory. So boy, have things changed a lot in the last year, right? That proved to be wrong. Markets reversed from that moment. What will the words come out of his mouth be now? Because now we're getting a lot of new economic data coming out of markets. We're seeing the housing market really slowing down. We're seeing consumer spending, consumer earnings coming down. So it'll be interesting. But it sure has felt like Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market have waited for this moment all week. And boom, here we go. The meeting has just begun, and we can see that the Dow Jones is taking an immediate fall. So right here in just the last couple of minutes, what have we done? The Dow Jones has already fallen 241 points. Like I mentioned, sometimes the first move isn't the real move, but boy, we're getting to a pretty strong move right here, right out the gates. Bitcoin, which of course is tied to the stock market, takes a plunge down with it too, moving down $388. Now we'll give this a second to breathe here for a minute, see what Jerome Powell is saying, and see if prices whipsaw themselves back up, as Jerome Powell is currently speaking right now, and see if he says anything that reassures the market. All right, so here we go. We're 9 minutes later, and the speech is over. So that was really fast. I didn't expect it to be so quick, but it was only 9 minutes long. And here we go. Market is turning back up. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average after its initial sell-off, starting to climb its way back up. Bitcoin doing the exact same thing after the initial sell-off right here. So now we've already reclaimed really what happened here with Jerome Powell. We'll see how this goes throughout the rest of the video, but we'll start talking more about broader things now. But geez, holy cow, there it goes. Already taken back pretty much the whole meeting. And same goes for the Dow Jones all the way back to green. And I just went back and listened to this speech And as we should all know, in June and in July, they did 75 basis points rate hikes. The market interpreted his last speech as being more dovish. However, he did just reiterate a hawkish standpoint, and reiterating that in his last meeting, he said that we could potentially see one more substantially large interest rate hike coming the next meeting, which will be late September. That will be dependent on evaluating the data, the economic data. He did acknowledge that we did see a downturn in inflation for 1 month, but we do need to see more than that moving forward. And depending on things or how things are moving beyond that, whether or not they can start slowing things down. But being at neutral, which they do believe we're at neutral right now, is not exactly a complete stopping point. So pretty much, there's been a lot of speculation out there on whether or not he'll do another 50 basis points rate hike, followed by a 25 after that. Judging by his words, that sounds pretty realistic. Now the question is whether or not will they do more than that. And I'm not a Fed interpreter expert. There's a lot of people out there you can look forward to see what they have to say about it. But I don't know. Sounds kind of hawkish to me. Again, I do find it hard interpreting something like that because they were very hawkish down here. Market didn't go any lower than that. Market fired its way back up. But it is always interesting watching these on these days because we can see extreme volatility happen in here. And so here we go. A few minutes later, we're still paused out. And the same goes for Bitcoin. And even several more minutes later, down even further now. So now the Dow Jones has fallen a total of 468 points, sitting right here, down 428 since the meeting actually started, but down 371 for the day. And Bitcoin back to 21,400. So bound to be an interesting day today. Already a ton of volatility to start the morning off. That's kind of what we expected, but it does not look like a direction has been chosen here on Bitcoin just yet. The big level I'll be paying attention to throughout the weekend is going to be that 20,700. And, who knows, by the time this thing uploads, maybe it'll crack through it. Maybe it'll break up. But essentially, like we've talked about for the last 2 weeks, trying to determine what type of structure is coming from Bitcoin right here. If this is actually longer accumulation or if this is just really a pit stop in a much longer bear market that does something like this as we continue to maintain higher lows in here. And right now, it's still going to be a waiting game to see which direction Bitcoin is going to choose and tell the story of. Typically, in these types of corrections that do fire their way up and roll over, we do maintain these higher lows. It's going to be about watching whether or not 20,700 maintains throughout the weekend and really throughout today. I would still suspect today is probably going to be pretty volatile. And to reiterate why that 20,700, those higher lows, are something that I'm paying attention to is just because we have followed how completed bear capitulation crashes have happened here on Bitcoin historically. And we've also fallen down to a very interesting price level, with this being the actual previous all-time high for Bitcoin back over here. We can see this is the exact level that we fell back to over here on the market cap. And the question is, are we still waddling in something like this that's going to actually take a long time? We're just doing it from a much lower price level in here. And with the Dow now heading down even deeper, it may be giving us our signal here. And with Bitcoin back to 21,700, taking back this whole move that happened here this morning that we showed at the beginning of the video. So definitely, as anticipated, that Friday would be our volatile day. We're getting it. We'll watch how things go throughout today. The big watch is that 20,700. If we take that out, it is showing that we'd probably be down here for longer than most would want. However, it does set up for a more better chance at a healthier accumulation strategy, healthier accumulation structure, rather than one that rolls up and then turns over and the bear continues. A more Wyckoff accumulation would actually be better. But still, that answer has not come, and we're going to be waiting throughout the weekend. And really today, I expect it's still going to be really volatile. And of course, be silly if we just stay here continuing and do the whole weekend. But we'll see. One thing I am paying attention to is, like we talked about earlier in the week, is we're talking about the stock market, right? And so we know that crypto has a tendency to follow the stock market long term, right? Obviously, we've been lagging behind here on the most recent move on the stock market, but it still is important to see the stock market going up because throughout all of Bitcoin's history, since its inception, a precedent for bullish price action has been that the stock market is bullish as well. We did the wave counts on the Dow Jones Industrial Average earlier this week. We were reading through Wikipedia. We're going through the psychology of each different wave count. We're talking about the Fibonacci retracements on wave counts and all that. And we can still see the Dow Jones has still not gotten back to a 382 Fibonacci retracement level for this to be wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As we talked about earlier this week, wave 4 typically retraces less than 38.2% of wave 3. So we're still within that range. Nothing has broken down in here. But the technical definition of wave 4 is that it can actually pull all the way back down to wave 1. But we know that this fall, which everybody's celebrating who's been a bear the whole ride up, they're celebrating this pullback, but still, even from a technical perspective, even on Wikipedia, it hasn't even gone back 0.382. So nothing crazy has happened in the stock market just yet. And we still haven't even pulled down to the 382 just yet. It still has about 160 points down to go from here before we even reach that level. But a volatile day, to say the least, already right out the gates. This video has almost just been kind of like documenting the volatility that has happened in here. For me, throughout today and throughout the weekend, it's going to be about watching that 20,700 price level to see if we end up taking that out. If we do, I'll start changing my tune on just my thought process and my interpretations of if Bitcoin's as bearish as I believe it is, which would be a roll up and then a roll back down. I'll start kind of changing my tune and thinking, hey, we've increased probabilities from my viewpoint that we're actually working on long accumulation, which isn't everybody's favorite, but it would make sense based on how things have played out for the last year at this point for Bitcoin, that would be more of the story being told. There will be a lot of people who believe that we're going to break down and set new lows. If that does happen, I've shown it throughout the week that we would be completing catastrophic damage on the charts for new lows. So I think the misinterpretation out there on the market is that if we do dip to new lows and we do start taking out these price levels, that's a good dip to be buying. We don't have a precedent for that. The precedents we have are based on how Bitcoin has behaved before, in which it has already done what appears to be a completed capitulation form, also dipping into oversold on the weekly time frame for the RSI, reaching back to the previous all-time high, and also reaching within the same fractal locations of what a completed bottom does. There's no precedent for it to go any lower. If it did, I'd be pretty worried. So my thought process is that we're not creating a bear flag in here that's going to break down lower. If it is, I think that spells even bigger problems for Bitcoin, not a dip buying situation for me. But that if that level did get taken out, I'd still be thinking, we're Y-coughing in here. We're going to be here a while. Not everybody's favorite, but long term, that is the best thing that we could look for Bitcoin, because a flip up from right here, I'll be screaming the sky is falling. If we do something more along these lines, increases the question of whether or not, hey, is that a healthier recovery or not? So my thesis and my thoughts all come on whether or not that level gets taken out, and we could see, whoops, the line right there. We're dipping on Bitcoin. Chaos throughout the day. We'll see how it goes throughout the weekend. If 20,700 gets taken out, I'll start leaning more towards a longer accumulation form than rather something that's going to fire up and we're in a super long bear for Bitcoin. But we'll see how things go. Otherwise, once again, we are still technically just in this range. So big morning. We'll see how things go. If we do dip low, I've been thinking about it. If we do go into Wyckoff accumulation, that I may actually buy some Bitcoin, and it's been a long time since I've been like a bull on Bitcoin, like even considering the idea of being a bull on actual Bitcoin more than like a retrace. But like if we actually go into Wyckoff accumulation, then it sets up the idea of, man, is this actually healthier? And have we already done the full cycle reset at this point? I'll interpret that as time goes by. If we are in Wyckoff accumulation, it would stay there for a while, so there'd be plenty of time to make that decision. It wouldn't be something that I would be doing immediately, but I've thought about that if that's the case, that I may end up doing that. We'll end up seeing. But either way, what a volatile morning. We'll see how the rest of the day goes. I'll be posting over here on Twitter for any type of big breaks that could end up happening in here. So make sure you're following me over here on Twitter at BCBacker. Again, as we have a dip in this market, the sponsor of this video, Link2, has reduced the pricing on several of their assets available over here on their platform in the private equity market. You can check them out by visiting the link in the description of this video and check out their decreased pricing on the companies listed here, such as Ripple, Uphold, Dapper Labs, Whoop, Zipline, Eat Just, Carbon, and Automation Anywhere, along with throughout this weekend, reducing the minimum investments from $10,000 to $5,000. They have 2 different ways you can fund your account, either via wire transfer or with your Uphold account. You can actually fund your account with cryptocurrencies. So check them out to see if you can get yourself accredited today and sign up to receive their proprietary analysis with data provided by CB Insights so you can get yourself educated on the private equity pre-IPO market over here on link 2. Otherwise, I want to thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.